Live.
Okay, I think this Hang On Air is live. We did it. Yes.
It's
Okay.
official.
Oh, it's official. I'll stand in the light. I'm in the. Oh, I dropped my pen. All right.
Wow,
Okay.
that was electric, dude. No joke. No joke. I got a little electrical pulse in my ears from these headphones right when you
Oh,
did that. That's a little alarming.
oh, dude, from Washington,
Okay.
Florida, I zapped you.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding, man. Okay, so check this out. We've
Yes.
got a really great comment slash question engagement from the people that are out there getting it done. All right, so
Yes. Okay, good.
I'm excited for this, Chris, for you to give us some perspective. Okay, so this comes from Matt on Facebook, commenting on your page, and he said, let me give you a little backstory real quick, and then we'll jump right into what
Okay.
he's looking for. He said he's a personal trainer, fitness professional, firmly established at Gold's Gym, has over 40 or so local clients, and an excellent rep for being effective, professional, fun, and innovative. All the good things. And he
Yep.
said, and he always has people saying, when are you going out on your own? When are you going to branch out? When are you going to start your own gig? But Matt knows little to nothing about starting his own gym or training business, even though he has a lot of acquaintances who could help with that. So, and help with that means finding space, how much is space, how much money, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't feel like I could reach out without Gold's finding out. Okay, so he didn't feel like he could go down that path of doing the research of starting his own gig without his current employer finding out. You follow me? You with me?
Yes. By the way, I think that's great because it's a real douchey thing to like start like while you're being employed by somebody and they're paying you to train their clientele. Like you start, cannibalizing this. Hey, I'm going to start my own thing. Why don't you come with me? And I think there's maybe it's a political thing in terms of how you do this, but there's a tasteful way to do it, and then there's a douchey way to do it. And so I respect this comment in terms of wanting to do it the right way. So yes, I'm
Yes.
tracking with you.
Okay, cool. So he said he was stuck in limbo until he got the opportunity handed to him to go into another studio. So his number one challenge in question is, how do you look into leaving a gym without causing a stir? Or maybe you can reframe the question of what you think he's getting at.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right. So there's two things at play here. One is I want to go start my own gym. I want to go do my own thing, and that's really look. And the other thing is I want to do it in a way that doesn't cause a stir, burn bridges, get me fired while I'm like telling people to come with me, or even hurt the people who've given me the opportunity by being here, right? So there's the two things that are happening. The bigger one of the two, I think, is how do you plan to go out on your own? Because that is a big deal. That's a big-ass deal. Like, there was a book I read probably 12 years ago called The E-Myth. It's a fantastic book, and you should definitely read it if you haven't read it. It's basically about why most small businesses fail in the first 2 years, and why the majority of those that make it 2 years will fail in the next 2 after that. And ultimately, that boils down to the fact that people are good at the technical work they do, but they don't have a business mindset for creating a business. In other words, the author of the book would say a technician. So I'm a great personal trainer. I understand movement. I understand lifts. I understand what produces results in the body. And so I'm really good at this, and I'm tired of having a lid on my income, so I want to go start my own thing. But starting your own thing is completely different than being technically excellent at being a trainer. So this is the bridge into what I feel like I do. This is why I want to help trainers. So Josh, can I break this down for you?
Yeah, so let me stop for a second. So it sounds, rather than answering his question of how do I go out on my own without creating a stir, you're saying, wait a second, let's start at square one and talk about going out on your own. That's
Yeah,
the question.
yes, I think that there's more value in first looking at. There's more value for you if you're watching this, and in understanding if you want to go start your own, there's some things you need to do right, and if you do those things right, then how you leave can also be done right. But if you don't plan it right, then how you leave is kind of left up to choice or chance. Okay.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
All
Hear
right.
you loud and clear.
So there's
All
really
right,
6 steps I want to give. I want to give 6 steps, and I think the best way to do this. Go ahead.
no, I said I hear you loud and clear. Where do
Oh,
we start?
okay. All right. So the best way I think to do this is to tell you what the 6 steps are, and then break those 6 steps down. that way you can watch sort of me talk about, or you can just listen to me talk about the 6 steps, and then if you want to go into each of the 6 steps in more in depth, you can click on the appropriate annotation or button in the video and go watch that. So the first step is, let's just put ourselves in your shoes if you're thinking about starting your own personal training business or fitness business, okay? So you have the idea. One day you're like, I had the idea, I want to do my own thing. Great. From that moment, the first thing you want to do is create a business plan. Okay, now business planning, I think, is misunderstood, and I think most people think of it more formally than it needs to be thought of. So basically a business plan can be done in one page, what I call an economic model, where you're basically breaking down the numbers of what you need to have happen from your net income as the end result, and then reverse engineering that back to how many clients do I need in order to do that. Okay, maybe even from there, going from how many clients do I need to how many intakes do I need to do to get those many clients. Okay, so that's step 1, is to create a business plan or an economic model. Actually, I'd also say inside of that, part of your business planning activity needs to be, well, I guess this is step 2. It moves right into step 2, which is to benchmark and trend your competition. So when you're doing your business plan and you do the numbers, the next thing you want to do is go figure out, what do other people charge for what you're wanting to do? So if you're going to go start a CrossFit box, like, what do other people with CrossFit boxes charge? You want to get a range of what they charge, okay? And what comes with that? How many sessions? How much? What's the frequency? What's the time? Okay, so benchmarking your competition or benchmarking the industry for what you want to go do is really important, because it gives you a sense of what the consumer is willing to pay. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's step 2. Step 1 is create your economic model. Step 2 is to go benchmark your industry and your competition. Step 3 is, once you have that, you need to start to figure out and play with your story. And there's really 3 pieces to your story. The first one is, your story needs to include who you are and what you're passionate about. So if you love CrossFit, let's just stay on that example for a minute. If you love CrossFit, great. Well, then that needs to be a part of your story and why you love it so much and why you think it's a good solution for other people. The second piece of you finding your story is, who are the people you're targeting? If you're wanting to target obese people because you have a real heart and passion for making a dent in that population, like, let's go make a difference there, and then you need to start to see the story evolve in that. What are their challenges, and how do you incorporate that into what you do with CrossFit, for example? Okay, and the third piece is, if you can find a grander story in that, like, it's not just, I want to help people who are overweight or obese get thin. I want to contribute to a greater cause in our society. Right, you can see this. It's trending, right? Let's just say it's trending right now, where there are businesses that are socially conscious, where businesses care about giving back to the community or making a difference. So like Tom's Shoes, where you buy a pair of shoes and they give a pair of shoes away. If you can come from something that's going to make a bigger difference on a bigger scale, you want to include that in your story. So you need to think about that. Okay, so that's step 3. Step 4, once you have a story in the works, great, now I blanked on step 4. Josh, I gave you some cheat sheets, didn't I?
Yeah. Step 4. So now you're feeling good, you're ready to make the leap, but before you do that, we need to work on outreach.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. Okay, so now you've got your story. By the time you get to outreach, you should be feeling pretty good about steps 1 through 3. You should be feeling pretty good about your numbers. You should feel pretty good about what you're going to charge and why consumers will pay you for it. And you should be feeling pretty good about your story, that it's compelling enough for people to want to work with you. Okay. Now, all of that moves you now into the outer world of talking with people and outreach or connecting with people. And I'm going to give you, let me give you 3 places to look for that. The first one is to look with your existing clients, right? In our Facebook comment that we started this hangout with, right, he had 40 clients who were happy and excited and even asking him, when are you going to go out on your own? Those people a lot of those people chose you. They like working with you. Or if they came to the gym and the gym assigned them a trainer and they assigned them you, over time, you're the one that has the relationship with them, not the gym. Okay? So the first place to look is reaching out and connecting with your current clients. Now, you want to do this in a way that isn't like, hey, I'm thinking about moving. Would you ever come with me? You want to do this in a way that is like, hey, listen, we've been working together now for 6 months. And what I'd like to do is kind of do a 6-month review. And then you're going to move them into an intake process. Now, you probably already did an intake when you started, but you're going to do like this review, a 6-month review. Or if you've been there 9 months, you're going to do a 9-month review, or whatever it is. But I would say probably it could be anywhere from a week to 2 months before you go out on your own. You're going to have this conversation with them, and it's going to allow you to take the temperature. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself because that's step 5. So the first place to look is your current clients. The second place to look is your clients' contacts. Right? This is pretty typical, but if you have a client, they have a family, their family members, or their friends, or their coworkers. Okay? That's the next place to look. And you can offer things like, hey, I'm going to do a free consulting session on, I'm going to give you a free workout plan, like refer your people to me, or I'm going to give your people a free plan, so have them come meet with me. I want to make a difference for them. Okay, that's the second place to look. And the third place to look is just your own network. So there are a lot of people that you know that they're probably not all training with you. So you need to start to reach out to them and have specific conversations with them about their life plans and their physical goals. And I have a list of questions for you. I'll sync that up somewhere over here for you to click on so you can see that list of questions that you could ask anybody in a conversation. Okay. When you ask the questions the right way, then you get to the end, and what happens is you start to see where people are open to you inviting them to that conversation. Okay. All right. So there, Josh. So step 4 is you need to do some outreach, and you need to talk to people, and you can use these questions to talk to them, and you can also invite the current people you have to do a free intake or a free review. Okay?
Okay, perfect. Now the next one is the actual intake.
Yeah, so once you've invited them to the intake, now we're going to actually sit down and do the intake. Now, if you watched our previous Hangout, it's really important that you do this intake correctly because it sets up your services. If you do it like most trainers do it, right? In fact, go watch our here, let me give you the other side of the screen. Go watch our other Hangout here and see what we talk about with that. But the thing is, like, if you do it right, people will self-discover what they want to do in their fitness, what they want to do in their life plans, and if you do it right, they're going to discover that other trainers don't ask them these questions. Every time when I'm meeting with a client, potential client, at the end of my questions in my intake, I ask, of all the other coaches or consultants that you've worked with, how many of them have asked you these kinds of questions? And I would tell you about 90% of the time, guess what they say? Guess what they say about, Josh, guess what they say about other consultants asking these kinds of questions? Do they do it or do they
they've
not
never
do
heard
it?
those kind of, yeah, yeah. Not even scratching the surface.
They don't ask these kinds of questions. And so what is it, what are they, when they ask these kinds of questions, what is the person left with? When you spend the kind of time to get to know them and ask these really penetrating questions that are about big deals in their life, right, and that you might actually have some ideas for them of what to do with those things, they're left with like, wow, you could really make a difference for me. And no website, no blog, no Facebook post, no YouTube video has given me this much depth or this much courage or hope for what I could do with my life or my fitness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge competitive advantage to start to do your intake in such a way that it has people self-discover why you are a good solution to what they're trying to accomplish and why that's not available anywhere else out there. Okay. Once you have that, by the end of the intake, you should have a sense of whether people want to coach with you or not. You could even do a trial close. I hate to use salesy language, but you could even start to come in and say, like, look, so let me ask you a question. If I were to create a special program designed around helping you accomplish these goals, it would be different than what we're doing now. So if I were to create this, like, what do you feel like would be a fair price to pay for that? Okay. So at the end, I'm going to start to get a sense of, like, they're going to tell me a number, and then I'm going to decide if that's good or not. But 2, I'd say take it. It's good because I'm going to show you how you can get more business beyond them. You could even train those that you currently have that are going to come with you for free. But they say, let's say they, well, look, Josh, I'd give you $200 a month. I would love to go take this on in my life. I've been always wanting to do this, and $200 would be good. Great, that's awesome. Why don't we set that up? Because I'm planning to start that in 30 days. Okay, so let's just take care of that now, and you can start to prepare for that. And I'll give you some, a preparation routine for the next 30 days to get you ready for that. Okay. So now I can pull out a informal agreement. I could even take a payment if I wanted. I could even take, front load it with a payment. There are ways you can do payments with your iPads, your iPhones, and those mobile card swipers and readers. Or you could even just do a contract with their credit card number, et cetera, and hold on to it. The point is, in the intake at the end, if you can actually get their commitment financially, that's when you know if you have critical mass to start your own business. And if you don't get that critical mass, then don't start your own business. Because the minute you start your business, you're where our friend was in the Facebook comment, where he's like, okay, well then actually, if you read the comment further, he goes on and says, I went out and I started my own thing, and then I was trying to figure out what to do with my space, and there was this whole cluster once you go out on your own that you have to figure out all the other stuff. You have to have your clients move with you. That's cash flow. If you don't start with cash flow, you're in a big pot of hot water. You're in big trouble, mister. So that's step 5.
Okay, perfect. So I love that, because you're starting with the sales and you're letting the sales lead your decision rather than making the decision and then chasing or finding the sales.
Yeah, it's great. Again, my background is real estate. So when I watch real estate agents get into real estate, most of them just go take their test, and I guess if you're a trainer, you could just go get your certification, and then you think, okay, well, here I am, everybody, I'm ready to train you, and there is no focus or emphasis on how do you actually go do this as a business. People don't just land in your lap to train with you. There's a ton of trainers and there's a ton of realtors, and we don't need another one. What we need is people who understand how to build a business and deliver value. Okay, and so Josh, it's huge. You have to have the commitment before you ever go out on your own. Okay, which I guess takes us to step 6. Let's go to step 6 real quick. And that is, step 6 would be, you need to, once you have those people, you open your business. You sever your connection and you go start your new business. Okay, and you bring those people with you and you run all their credit cards on day 1, and boom, you've got cash flow from day 1. Okay. I would suggest also that you move, in the beginnings, you definitely move your business towards more of a service-oriented consulting framework and less of a, hey, let's get everybody out into the gym and train them perspective, right? Does that land? I'm thinking that might sound weird real quick. How does that sound to you over there?
It sounds, no, I was following it, and I know where you're going with that. It sounds like a perfect topic for another session here on YouTube.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, that's a totally different monster, but I love it.
All right, it is a monster. It is a monster because I think it needs to be addressed at some point. Okay, so we'll address it at some point because I think that is where the industry needs to go. Because It's not about you being able to spot somebody as they bench press or you being able to walk them around the gym and tell them what to do with the lifts. That's important, but they can find that stuff on YouTube. What they need is a coach in their life to speak to them in a way, and that's a consulting relationship, not a trainer relationship. So
I love it. Okay,
well, let me just say this. The reason I brought it up, though, was because I don't want you from day 1 to be dependent on having to have a whole bunch of equipment, which equals overhead. I don't want you to have to be dependent on having to go find a gym that is willing to let you in and then, demand X amount of dollars from your cash flow. So if you can find ways to serve your clients in a park or from a home workouts or something that doesn't include overhead or expenses, operating expenses, then that's what I'm advocating for. I'm trying to push people to limit their overhead starting out. That's why I brought that up. So.
Okay, perfect. All right, now let's circle back and dive very deep in each step. So we'll start with the business plan, the idea.
Okay, great. All right, good. Thanks for keeping me on track. So the first step of this whole thing is what I call an economic model or your business plan. And it's really simple. Josh, you can back me up on the calculator here in case I need you, which I probably will. Well, let's say that you want to make $100,000 net. You can see that, right, Josh? That
Yes.
writing?
Yep,
okay.
perfect.
So again, we're starting with the end in mind. What in the next 12 months, how much money do you want to net before taxes? Let's say 100,000. Baby,
$100,000.
woo! 6 figures. Let's do it. In your first 12 months of launching your business, if you could do 6 figures, would you be happy? Yeah, we'd be happy. Okay. All right. So this is a pretty common number that I hear, 100,000. So let's build a plan to figure out what do we need to do to accomplish that. There's a couple things you need to factor in for. The first one's what I'm going to call COS, or cost of sale. It's any cost affiliated with the sale of your service. So if you were in a gym, and your agreement with the gym you were working out of said, hey, we want 25% of your client. So they're not going to charge you rent, but they're going to take 25% of every client. This is where that number would go right here, cost of sale. For math, let's just assume that you don't have cost of sale and everything you're doing is just a rent situation and there's no split with anybody, okay? So you get to keep 100% of what you're making, you just pay for your space. All right, that leaves us then to, let me just say too, the reason I didn't have to write this down if I didn't want to, but I wrote it down because the other piece of this is if you get so successful that you want to eventually have other trainers that are in your organization or your company, then you need to factor this in your business plan as the owner of this business, where you are giving 50% of the commission to your trainers or whatever the split is, and that's where you'd factor this in. Okay, so let's move into operating expenses. Operating expenses are any expense that it takes to run your business. So certifications, education, supplements, to equipment, to rent. Okay, any of that stuff's going to fall in here. Let's just say that for now in a startup world, it's $500 a month, which would be about $6,000 a year. Okay, that's going to give us a total of $106,000 gross income. Okay, so we need to have a business in the next 12 months that produces $106,000 plus equals. So start here, add these together, gives you the gross income. You with me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so from here now, we're trying to get to is how many clients, right, do we need? That's where we want to get to. So let's work this back. Let's assume that every client, for our purposes, let's assume you're doing $40 an hour, assuming that you're doing an hourly model, but let's just start there, okay? $40 an hour, and you're training 3 times a week. Okay, that would be about $500. I think $480 a month. Is that right, Josh?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, and then we times that by, in fact, actually, if we back that out, let's do it by week, and then we'll do it by 50 weeks. So we'll go $40 times 3 times a week. That's $120 a week times 50 weeks. That gives us $6,000. Is that right, Josh? $6,000?
You got it, $6,000.
Okay, so each client is worth $6,000 a year. Okay, so we're going to divide $106,000 by $6,000 to figure out how many clients do we need. So we do that, and we need how many clients, Josh?
17.66.
Okay, 17 points. Let's just round that up to 18 because that number is astonishing to me. And this is what I love about this kind of business planning. Now, look, here's where I think most people's objections go to in this. They'd be like, dude, I can't charge somebody $500 a month for personal training. If that is what you believe, fine. This is why in step 2 we do benchmarking and trending. What is your competition charging? And that gives us a sense of what the consumer is willing to pay. So let's say the consumer isn't willing to do $500 a month. Let's say they're only willing to do $250. Let's cut the number in half. Okay, hang on. Let's cut the number in half. So now each client is only worth $3,000 a year, which means now we're up to 36 clients. We need 36 clients. Look, I don't know about you, Josh, but that's good news to me. 36 clients is a lot easier than I think people think it is. They think they have to do like a gazillion. In fact, the guy that wrote on Facebook, he's like, how many clients did he have?
Yeah, he had 40 clients.
He had 40 clients. He had 40 clients. Right. So, okay, that's my point. So now the question is, from here, let's actually reverse engineer this even more. It's one thing to say we need 36 clients, but you're like, yeah, that's great, Chris, but now how do I get those clients? Well, the next piece in this conversion ratio is how many intakes do we need to have? How many intakes do I need to have with people? Because a certain percentage of them are not going to pay for me. When I do my intakes, I'm about 50%, right? 1 out of every 2 will sign up with me to consult. So we need to figure out what's your conversion ratio. Let's assume that you're at 50%. So let's take 36 divided by 50%, and that is, what is it, 72?
Yes.
You would need to have 72 intakes. 72 intakes, assuming that 50% of them are going to sign your payment agreement that starts in 30 days, or however you set that up, okay? 72 intakes. Now that's a little bit different, right? That actually starts to go like, wow. So now, if you say, well, I want to start my business, when should I start it? Well, my question for you would be is how quickly can you get to 72 intakes? If you said, I want to start this in 2 months, you'd have to do a little over 1 a day, because that'd be 60, right? 2 months would be 60 days. And if you did 1 a day, that'd be 60 intakes in 60 days, and you need 72. See, I think what happens, Josh, is sometimes people go, hey, I want to start a business, and then they look at the things like, I got to get rent, and I got to find space, and I got to do this other stuff, but they don't look at how many clients do I need to launch with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
This is what's missing. This is what's missing. They look at all the concrete stuff out here, but they don't look at the thing that actually drives revenue. So my question back to you, if I were consulting you, is, well, how quickly do you think you can have 72 intakes? Because that's what we need to get 36 clients. Now, I could counteroffer this to myself and say, well, I don't actually need 36 clients from day 1. Okay, great. Good point. Nice catch. So my whole point is you take this number and you figure out, you take this formula, you figure out what you need to do to launch. In fact, take this formula and then do it now with a completely different set of numbers. How much do you need to net in the first 90 days? And put your number here. And what are your expenses in the first 90 days? And then what's the gross in the first 90 days, right? And then that'll give you a sense of like, well, how many clients do you need to launch with? If you're like, dude, I'd like to make 100,000, but really I only need $3,000 a month to live on, great. Or I need 5,000, great. 5,000 over 3 months, it's 15 grand. Here you go. This is how you plan this is how you count the cost before you ever take the plunge. And most people don't do it, and that's why they fail.
Why do you think most people don't do it?
I don't think anybody's ever showed them this. I think anybody watching this, leave me a note in the comments, right? Has anybody ever shown you this? Has anybody shown you this model? My guess is no. And please, listen, please write no. If you haven't, just say no. I've never seen that. And if you have, tell me that too. And maybe if you have a good resource and you're like, dude, I've done that and I've done one that's even cooler than that, great, show me that too. But it's not as here's the other thing, Josh. I was on a site today looking at forums. I was looking at I just wanted to see, if you go into Google and you type forum : whatever the industry is. So I went forum : personal trainers, right? And it took me to a search results page that showed me different forums where personal trainers are on. And I went and looked at all the most. I sorted it by most views and most views to least views. And there are hardly any comments or chats or topics in these forums that deal with the business side of being a personal trainer. There's a ton about what certification should I get? What do you guys think about this nutrition thing? Like, there's all this stuff, but that has nothing to do with business. And on the side of that forum, I saw a little sidebar that said salary calculator. And so, look, there's something about writing this out and doing this math this way that triggers something in your brain more than a salary calculator. There is no thought process in a salary calculator other than I want to make X amount of dollars. When you know how to work these numbers this way, you take all the power and control back in planning your business. Did I answer the question okay, Josh?
Yeah, yeah, it's perfect. I could see how people would just want to follow their passion and just go help people, and business is secondary, and it's easy to think about your branding and your logo and your shop and your gym and your training and your plans when in fact what you're pointing out, you're saying is priority number one.
Yeah, that's right. I see this all the time. I think this is why if you look, I mean, if you started with critical mass in your business and you had decent cash flow from day one, most of your problems are over. The problems most businesses run into, especially small businesses like solopreneurs or people who run their own business, is they don't plan ahead enough. Most of us shoot from the hip. Most of us use intuition and excitement to go try to create something, and we just don't have enough critical mass from the get-go. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this is step one.
Okay,
I think when you go through this piece, then benchmarking and trending what people are willing to pay, like how much do other trainers get per client, then I think now this is your initial run through. Now you need to go look like what do people pay other trainers. They get this CrossFit box gets that, and this personal trainer gets that, and that yoga instructor gets that, and this nutritionist or dietitian gets that. It was actually interesting, that forum thing I talked about. One of the posts was about how dietitians make more than personal trainers, and so this personal trainer went and got their whole registered dietitian thing, degree, certification, whatever, and because of that, so they could position themselves as a dietitian because they could charge more per their client. Anyway, that's all about benchmarking. So let's move into that. Okay?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, I'm gonna turn my computer around here so I can sit down.
Oh, okay. All right. No more whiteboard.
No more whiteboard. We're done with the whiteboard. So just stand by, and you'll see my pretty face up close and personal. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if pretty is a good word. Maybe pretty is not the word.
Pretty is definitely not the word.
Pretty is not the word. All right. Good. I don't know. You have any songs you want to sing, Josh, while we're
I just put the boys to bed, and I did a little Hotel California for them. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. Start them young.
And then I gave them a little Bob Dylan.
Yeah, nice. That's fantastic. I think you'd be shocked by what we teach our kids. Appalling, maybe. I don't know. Okay. All right. Hey, gang. It's good to be like up close and personal.
Hey, we have some type of matching. We have some matching.
Yes.
Decorations.
Matching feng shui. I like it. All right, good. Hey, these lights are hot, man. I'm sweating out. Over here. Okay. All right, let's go to step number 2, which is benchmarking. Ready for that?
Yeah, I want you to say that again because it caught up. Start again, what you just said. Let's go to.
Okay, let's go to number 2, which is benchmarking. So, in benchmarking, I've sort of already said it, so there's not a ton more to say maybe, other than I think what you're wanting to look for are 3 things. What are people charging? What are the services they're charging for? And then number 3, what's the frequency of that service? Right. So you're looking for, are they charging $500 a month? Are they doing it per session? You're also looking for what's the service? Is it group training? Is it one-on-one training? And then how long? Is it an hour? Is it 30 minutes? You just want to get a sense. I would suggest finding 5 to 10 minimum of 5 to 10 other trainers that you can figure out what they're charging. And it's also important that you do this not just on a Google search or some type of web-based search or forum, but you want to go in your local marketplace because every market is different in terms of what the consumer's barometer is for what they're willing to pay. Right? In Seattle, you're going to get much different price than what you'd get where I live in Spokane, which is on the east side of the state. Right? Mm-hmm. So you need to go locally and find what are people locally willing to pay for training.
Yeah, and this, Chris, this goes without saying, but comparable to what you have in mind, right? We want to compare apples to apples. And we also
Right.
want to compare it against successful trainers, not the people that put on a good front, but the people that are actually getting paid.
Yeah, good. Great. Yes, great point. Because look, the other piece of that is um, there. This is a uh, business planning is a soul searching process. Like you may start off thinking, what I want to do for business is a boot camp type of scenario. And you start to look in your marketplace for who's doing boot camp, and you may see like nobody's really doing boot camp stuff. Now, that's either a good news or bad news. In other words, you may not have anybody to benchmark off of because nobody's doing that in your space or in your town, which means maybe it's right for people to do that, and it would be a great way to leverage your time for sure. So these are the thought process you have to start to judge of what do I do with that? Maybe that's part of, if you find that in your research, in your benchmarking research, when you get to your intake process, this is where you may want to start to drop some hints or ask some questions like, hey, have you ever thought about doing a group workout program, or what would that be like for you? And so you ask your clients, like, what would that be like for you? Would you do that? And they're like, yeah, I'd like that. I think I'd still like one-on-one, but I'd be open to doing group stuff. Great. Well, how many would be too many, right? So look, all of this is in this stage of benchmarking what you're trying to accomplish with the industry and the consumer and finding out what fits.
Okay, and Chris, so that leads me to also believe that once you do your proper benchmarking, it's probably common to circle back to step number one and be sure
Yeah.
that your numbers and your calculations.
Good. Yeah, again, and this is what a salary calculator can't do for you, because you're going to have these thoughts and you're going to have to come back and be like, you know what? After I first planned out what I want to make and what it's going to take to do that preliminarily, then I went and benchmarked stuff. I realized like my projections are a little off. Like there isn't really any trainer in my town getting $500 a month. In fact, they're not even getting $250. I think the highest trainer right now, and I'm making this up, the highest trainer in my town is getting $200 a month. And the kind of service they're charging for is, 3 times a week for an hour each session. And that's what and then if you can find this out, it'd be hard because you'd have to actually ask these questions. You could say like, if you can find out what kind of clientele they have that pay those those numbers, that might actually give you a sense of step 3, which is your story, which is who am I trying to attract, right? So.
Okay, tell me more about the story.
Okay, great. So a good segue. Let's move to step 3, which is you need to finding your story is a part of your power zone. This is what we talked about last time as well. But your story is what people connect to. So just to say that I'm a personal trainer isn't enough, because there's a lot of personal trainers. Tell me anything. Why are you a personal trainer? Like, I find, especially with personal training, there's a passionate thing about it for people. It's either they love exercise, or there's a real difference they want to make for a particular group of people. Okay, that's the stuff you want to explore, and you want to figure out how do you share that with people. And I think I gave in the overview of this, I gave some places to look. Look at yourself and what you're passionate about, what you love. Look to your target market, figure out what they need. So let me just say this, Josh. Most people don't get specific enough in their target market. They're like, I want to train everybody. Or you'd say, I want to train business people. Okay, well, that just isn't specific enough. You want to get to, is it men or is it women? Is there an age group that you prefer? Is there a particular worldview that you prefer, right? Maybe it's a spiritual context, or maybe it's a political point of view. The more specific you get about who you're creating this service for, the more viral it will go in those circles. So if you want to be able to create a business that has lots of referrals and word of mouth, then you get really specific in who you're targeting and do a great job for them. And ultimately, they're going to have the interest that you choose is going to be something that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, if I can, so the more specific you can identify your niche, then the more perceived value and the more true value, which is what they're willing to pay. So for instance, and this is a poor example, but you can add on to it. if I specifically wanted to develop my chest, now we're just talking the physical aspect, right? And you said, Josh, I'm a personal trainer that specializes on improving guys to grow their chest. I would be willing to I would be willing to pay you more money than the general trainer that trains old women, old guys, young girls, and they cover all facets of it.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about find out your niche and your specialization, then that's more perceived value. Talk to me just real quick about that.
Okay, good. So I would say if you do that, I would try to make your niche outside of the physicalities. Get into demographics. So or interests, okay, outside of bodybuilding. So let me use one that's a little bit removed from. The more passionate you get, gosh darn it, there's so many ideas in my head right now, or thoughts in my head. So there's a thought process called tribes, which Seth Godin, one of my favorite authors, talks about. And in tribes, basically what he's saying is post-industrial age, people are segmenting themselves into smaller and smaller groups that have very common interests, and they're passionate about those interests. So one of those segments of society is wine. People that love wine, love wine. And I don't mean the ones that go buy the box wine. I mean, like, if somebody's going to drop $15 to $20 on a bottle of wine, they want it to be a good bottle of wine. Okay. So what if you were a personal trainer who only specialized in training people who love wine? Now, what would your client parties look like? You'd have wine. And what would your weekly emails be about? You could be like, hey gang, here's a push-up tip, but by the way, I tried this cab last night and it was fantastic. That's the kind of content that gets shared. That's the kind of content that people want to engage with. People don't want to engage with your push-up. They'd be like, hey, that was a great push-up, I did it, who cares? What people want to talk about are those topics in life they're really passionate about. So here's another example of a topic or a segment of society that's passionate. Hunting and fishing, right? Those people, if they're really into it, they're into it, right? And what my point is, can you think of some? Let's see if we can come up with one or two more other examples of like these kinds of topics or subjects that are really interesting to people and they polarize stuff.
Sure. Well, I can speak from experience training for these the Tough Mudders or Spartan race. So if you're a personal trainer that specifically focused in on getting somebody prepared for that, you know, that's somebody with the same blood as me. They speak my same language. They have the same thoughts, and I'd be magnetized to go use them. And
what else? Like, what other things, Josh, do you do outside of working out? What other things what other interests do you have?
Photography. Photography.
Great. Okay, great. Love it. Photography. So let's use that one, because if you're into photography, dude, people like talking about their ISOs and their shutter speeds and their all that kind of stuff and get all geeky about what that looks like. And that is a self-expression for people. So again, it doesn't work if you don't have the same vernacular, you don't have the same interest, because you're not going to be able to speak their language.
Right. And so, Chris, I can already tell, having that fear of, wow, if I narrow it down to this tiny, tiny niche, I'm going to be missing out on all of this business.
This is the paradox of business, man. I mean, this is exactly what people wrestle with. They try to throw such a wide net they try to be all things to all people, and they attract no one because nobody cares. And so I'm not saying that you can't.
Hey, if I can, I need to just stop you. There was a delay in the internet, so you've got to make that point one more time, crystal clear. They try to be all things to all people. Say that again, please.
Yeah, and I've seen it in more industries than just the fitness industry. But people try to be all things to all people, and then they end up attracting no one, because what you say to everyone is so generic that it doesn't land. People don't care. So to say, hey, I'm your personal trainer for all your fitness needs. Who cares? That's a terrible thing. What would you say? Like, hey, I got another workout for you. Are you busy? Do you wish your abs were cooler? Like, I've got a thing for you. And that just doesn't. People don't care about that.
I'd be looking at him and be like, dude, I just saw you go train that pregnant chick, and now you're going to come over here and train me? Like, how does that work?
Right. So again, I would um, I would just encourage whatever the special interest is, make it outside of something physical. So don't make it athletic. Well, that's not totally fair. I mean, it could be maybe runners are that's a passionate topic, right? If you love running, that's a big deal. So I get that. Skiing, that's a passion for people. But the way you interact with those people in your story isn't like, hey, I'm going to train you to be a great skier. You talk to them about, hey, I saw this great new lift open up on the mountain, and I saw this over here, and this is the stuff that people, the perimeter conversation that you get to be valuable to people in.
I like it. I'm following you. I'm following you. And again, this, I think what you're talking about right now, it needs a segment all by itself. So for instance, the poor example I used about training the pregnant chick and training me has nothing to do with the physical aspect. Maybe that chick likes photography, and he's speaking photography to her, speaking photography to me. That's that specialized niche.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we got to do a whole segment on this.
Yeah, that's okay. Good. We'll earmark that for a future hangout, because I think there's enough places to go explore that where it's. And let me just go back to the question that you brought. It's like the fear that happens is if I get too specific, I'm going to miss out on opportunity. That is the universal fear of people niching down. I don't want to niche down because I don't want to miss opportunity. But here, look, this is why we did the business plan in step one. Because, Josh, to make $100,000 a year, how many clients did we need?
36.
36. 36. Are you telling me that you can't find like 36 wine drinkers? You can't find 36 pregnant women? You can't find 36 photographers? This is why we business plan like this, because once you figure out what the number is, then you go to work on your story. You're like, well, is there a big enough audience in my niche, right, to support my economic model? If you're going after underwater basket weaving, that niche might be too narrow. There are not enough underwater basket weavers in my community to hit my economic model. That's a clue. But you also don't want to be so big and say like, well, I just want to work with executives. It's too big.
Mm-hmm.
It's too many. Get more specific. What kind of and executives, by the way, is not a passionate conversation. So if what you say is I want executives, you need to add to that a piece that is a special interest topic. Executives who like wine. Okay, now I've got some collateral and I've got some topics that will actually move the conversation with people forward.
Gotcha. And so then you're really in your power zone, talking and hanging out with people that you truly have something in common with and you enjoy being with, and then how does that affect everything? I imagine it just expands and expands and expands, and you begin to really turn into a magnet to create those more and more people. And tell me what that happens in a tribe. Once a tribe is identified, what does that tribe begin to do?
Right.
They attract more and more. Yep.
They talk to each other. The thing about a tribe is especially when it's around a topic that they're interested in, they talk. And you can, if you create environments for them to hang out with that topic. So I do a wine tasting event for I love that, by the way. I love the paradox of that. Like I'm gonna target people who love wine, and we're gonna drink wine together, and then we're gonna go work out, and we're gonna be super fit and super lean, but we're gonna enjoy the finer things of life. I love that. That's amazing, because I think people beat themselves up in life when they're trying to get fit, thinking they can't spoil themselves or they can't have some of the finer things in life. What a cool, sexy niche to take on if you're a personal trainer watching this. I think you should do that, and I'll help you.
Yeah. So we don't know if the beer niche would work. Is the beer still up in the air, right?
Look, dude, I know people that are shredded that would drink a beer every now and then. I just think it's, yeah. So.
Okay, cool. So you hammer the story, identify, create your story, find your niche, find your tribe, and that evolved to a whole nother segment that we have to do. That's powerful. Now, step number 4. You're feeling good. You're ready to make the leap. But before you make the leap, talk to us about outreach and why that's important. How to do it.
So you got your story. Once your story's down, and this is why identifying your story and your niche is so important, because it makes the outreach so much easier, right? If I just come up with executives, what am I do? Cold call executives? Hey, do you want me to train you? Hey, I'll train you. But if you have like a interest, a topic, like hunting, you'd be like, hey, dude, people, I'm doing skeet shooting this weekend. Come out to the shooting range. We're gonna do some skeet shooting. People might actually show up for that because it sounds fun, and that's where you get to meet them and connect with them and outreach with them. Or go back to the wine example, which I'm still telling you that I'd help you guys with, if you want to do that. Do a wine tasting party and invite your current clients to come to wine, and their ticket in is to bring somebody you don't know. If you want to come to the wine tasting and taste the great wine I have, your ticket in is bring somebody I don't know. Okay, now, to do things like that, it's fun. It's not salesy. It's an environment where people are having fun, and you're building community as you do it, right? So that's the type of outreach that I like to push people towards, is go find something fun for this target market or niche that you've identified.
Cool. I love it. Sign me up. Whoever's going to train the wine niche, I'm the first client.
Nice. If you did use your example of Tough Mudders, which is a little tricky because it does get that's the part where you want to look. Are there enough people that are passionate about Tough Mudders to continually have what do you talk about? Besides the next upcoming Tough Mudder, what else do you talk about? And that's the thing. That's the litmus test. Does this topic have enough things for me to talk about besides to keep talking about things? Right. That's the litmus test. So your outreach then is. Well, let me just say this. The outreach is going to be about those questions that I mentioned, and I'll put a little annotation right here for those questions. But I think it's about 8 questions I came up with. They're a variation of what I used to use in real estate, what I used to teach real estate agents to use in real estate. I even wrote a course around it called Lead Conversations, and it was like, look, leads show up in conversation. That is outreach. Your outreach is not a sales script or a sales tactic. It's just having a conversation with people. But you have to ask the right questions. And when you ask the right questions, people start to open up about specific things. Okay. A couple examples would be like, Josh, look like let's just put this in a wine tasting scenario. So we're at a wine tasting, and I just meet you, and I'm the trainer, and you're the guest, and I say, so, Josh, like, where do you live?
I'm just here local, just about 10 minutes down the road.
We'll just kind of role play this out, right? So, okay, you live 10 minutes down the road. That's awesome. Like, do you belong to a gym or what?
Yeah. I signed up about a year ago, and I have the little tag on my keychain.
Nice.
Basically, to show off to all of my friends.
Nice. Do you work out at all, or what's like? Are you pretty active that way?
Just on my own. It's sometimes when I go in there, I feel a little lost because I haven't been in there for so long. Yeah,
right. I think that's pretty common. Well, look, like, what are some of your fitness goals this year?
I'd really love to truly get back into maybe a 5K or 10K. Currently, I need to drop about 15 pounds before the holidays.
Oh yeah, little pre-holiday prep work. Good for you.
Yeah.
What are your plans to do that right now?
I don't have any specific plans. Maybe to cut out. I just read something today. Cut out anything that is white carbs.
Yeah, nice.
Maybe get up and jog in the morning. No, I haven't tried it before.
Okay, and have you jogged before pretty consistently, pretty regularly?
Not regularly. Nope, it's just on and off.
Got it. Hey, listen, let me ask you, what in the past, I mean, I think we're creatures of habit, like what's been the biggest thing that always causes the breakdown, as you set out to accomplish a new goal? What's the thing that sort of like sabotages your efforts?
So a couple different ones. Maybe I'll, if I set a goal and then I get halfway there or 75% there, it's good enough, and I give myself a break, then I fall off the wagon, and then life gets busy, and then those priorities fall. Other items may be just lack of schedule, getting busy, maybe traveling, no set agenda, no true habits.
Well, Dude, that is so common. It is so common. I hear you. Well, look, I hope I'm not being too forward, but I mean, it sounds like you really have something that you want, like with the holidays and then beyond that with the 10K and stuff like, do you foresee that being any different than the past, or like, what's your plan to make that different?
See, you're just backing me into a corner. This is a funny thing. If we could pause, I know what you're doing, and I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah,
Isn't that weird?
yeah. Because I'm not, and versus, like, if I were going to start to use my tie downs, Josh, you can see the benefit of working out, can't you? That is old school sales strategy stuff that people smell and they don't like it.
Right, right.
You're manipulating me. You're trying to get me to say something right now I don't want to say. But when I'm coming at it from hey, dude, I'm listening to your story and I'm hearing what you're committed to, and I'm just curious, like why you think this is going to be any different than every time in the past that you've gotten busy.
Yeah.
I'm just not saying as directly, but
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm challenging you on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm almost sure no other trainer that you've interacted with has probably challenged you this way.
No.
And dude, we're just sitting here sipping wine. You haven't
Yeah.
even committed to work with me yet.
Yeah, I love it. So you're having that conversation, and it's feeling so natural. I think that's the special part. You're not selling, you're not pushing, you're not begging. But you have a strategy. That's what's important. Rather than shooting from the hip, like so many people do, you have a strategy, but you're making the strategy feel natural and a natural, common setting.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. That's when in my lead conversations course that I wrote for real estate agents, that was the whole thing, right? It's like, and look, there's a great parallel between real estate and fitness. Like, both in real estate and fitness, we have the product that people want. In real estate, people want to buy a house. I don't have to sell it because people already want it. And in fitness, people want to be healthier. They want to be ripped. They want to be fit, whatever. And when we have the answers for them. So it's great because in both industries, we have what the consumer wants. But what has them open up to us and see us differently than everybody and than every other professional that is in our industry is by asking these kinds of questions and getting them to open up about their life plans and what they're trying to accomplish and what's been their hurdle. And when I hear the hurdle, now here, Josh, let's go back to the role play for a sec.
Yes.
Because this is where outreach gets us to the intake. So I'm gonna move us now into step 5. But our outreach, our conversations, our connecting with people in our niche, and having this type of a conversation at some point to be like, so look, Josh, let me ask you something. I would be interested in, I'm a trainer. I mean, obviously, I'm hosting this wine party, and this is fantastic wine and all that stuff, and blah blah blah. But look, I'm interested in creating a strategy with you. And it wouldn't cost anything. My first appointment or strategy session is always complimentary, and it would give you a sense of if you like sort of the way I approach things and how I think about things. And worst case scenario, we part ways, and you head off with at least a plan and a strategy that I've customized for you, besides whatever articles you read about cutting out white stuff and maybe running a little bit. Like, I actually want to create a strategic program that gets you through the holidays that's custom to you. Was that something that you'd carve out 60 minutes so we could sit down and go through that together?
Sure, absolutely. Are we going to be able to drink wine together?
If you want to, I'll bring the wine if you want that. I'll bring the wine if you want that.
Yeah, that's so harmless, and so natural.
And it's front loaded with value. I'm like, dude, I will create a custom program for you, and I framed it. You see, I framed it inside of what you said you wanted, which was to drop some pounds. Right, I'll create a custom program for you, how to drop 15 pounds before the holidays, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Chris, I sensed myself, even though we're role playing, thinking, and I could bring a couple buddies and we could do this together, because I didn't feel like I was being pitched or sold.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And I think if you lead this way, what'll happen is, because it was a good experience for them, that'll become more natural for people to refer their friends to this intake, this strategy session, because it's so helpful and not salesy, and I'm not doing, tie downs, and I'm not using closing techniques. I'm just trying to help you. But like you said, I'm being strategic. I actually have a plan. I have a strategy here.
Okay, so the outreach and those questions, but making the questions have strategy and making them natural, that's the critical point. Okay, so
Yes.
step five, circling back to the 6 things before you go out on your own and having the business plan, benchmarks, creating your story, uh, now working the outreach, and now it's coming down to intake, the needs analysis. Talk to me in detail about the intake.
I think the intake, it's almost hard to just, without doing its own whole hangout or doing a role play through it, to see, because the intake is the beginning of your entire relationship, and if you do it right, it's an easy sale. If you do it wrong, then it's a hard sale, and you're going to be chasing people. And the secret to that is the kind of questions that you ask. That is the entire secret of your intake. So let me give a little bit of mechanics so that you can, anybody listening to this can play with the mechanics of it and use your own questions. Okay. Going back to our role play, if you had said, yeah, like that sounds great, I'd like to do that, I would have said, so Josh, here's what I want to do next. Well, let's do this. Before you leave tonight, in fact, let's right now. I mean, do you keep your calendar on your phone? I mean, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Great.
Okay, so we're at the wine tasting event that you held. Okay.
Yeah, let's say if you are interested in it right then, I'm not gonna say, hey, well, let's, why don't I call you later this week and we'll schedule something. Like, you're thinking about it now, and you're most interested in it when? Now. I'm making my best impression for you right now. So I'll be like, look, Josh, let's do this. Like, let's just schedule it. What do you have time, like this Friday, or let's do next Friday? I usually find about 7 days is good for people to have time to, because I'm going to send you some questions between now and when we actually meet. And I want you to fill out your answers to my questions, and then I want you to send those questions back to me at least 24 hours before we meet so that I can prepare for our meeting. Okay, so let's just book that. Do you want to do that next Friday? And then you'd be like, yeah, next Friday, great. So now we've set it, right? I've set the thing is set. Now my job is to email you the questions, and I do my questions in a Word document. And if you're using Microsoft Word, you go to the far right on the top, and it says Review, and you click that, and you turn on Track Changes, and then when I send it to them, when they type in their answers, it comes out in a different color font. So now I can see theirs. Then when I go through their answers, sitting at my computer, nobody's around me, I'm just looking at their answers, I'm asking myself follow-up questions. So let's say you're going to have a section of questions that deals with their workout history. And one of your questions might be something like, where do you seem to fall off the wagon with exercise? And you type in similar to what you said at the wine party. You say, I get too busy, and then the family thing happens and all that. So I'm reading your answer, and I think to myself, yeah, but why does that happen? Why can't Josh stand up for his own time? And I start thinking, is this a codependent thing? Is this about feeling worthy as a dad? Is this just bad planning? And I don't know if any of these are what's happening, but they all give me like cause for wanting to find out what's really going on. So I type out my question, like, why do you think that happens, and what's really going on? And and then I save it, right? And that's my little reminder when I talk to you on Friday on the phone. I like to do mine on the phone, even if the person's in town. I like to do it on the phone because in person there's a lot of distraction that happens. So on the phone I stay pretty focused. That's just me. But I'm trying to give mechanics here. So once I have my follow-up question, when we're on the phone and I get to that question, I'm now going to ask you, so Josh, you said that family and you get busy and all this stuff gets in the way. So I'm trying to figure out what's really going on there. Can you talk me through that? And on the phone, you're going to be like, well, sometimes I do this and I don't. And then I'm just going to have a conversation with you. So this is what makes this work, because I'm starting to address what's under the surface. What continually causes you to not follow through, I'm going to go to work on.
I could see how the intake alone is therapeutic. Just the intake process, just filling out ballpark about how many questions would be involved in the intake Word document that you send them?
My question, I have 119 questions in mine. Mine deals with business people. So, and I say like, look, Josh, it's 119 questions. It covers 13 areas of your business. And when you're done, I'm going to have a good sense of where we need to go next.
Gotcha.
If you're doing trainer questions, you could do 40, 50, 60 questions.
I see. So 50. So you said, so after this wine tasting event, you send me a 50 question that's making me dig deep and sort of discover and pinpoint my hangups and my journey and my goals. Just me answering the questions alone is going to be value, because nobody ever thinks through those questions. And then to have a follow-up 60 minutes with you to help me even reveal more, I could see how, and we already have the common ground of wine, or whatever that is for each person.
That's right. That's right.
So, and this is all this value and discovery before we even do any business together. And so, gosh, man, I just have to say this because I'm getting excited. All we need is 36. Is that 36? Right?
Yeah. We need, based on our economic model, my whiteboard over there, we needed 72 intakes for 50% of them to say, yes, I'll pay you $250 or $500 a month for you to get me where I want to go.
Gotcha. So if our niche is wine, and we're throwing these wine tasting parties, and we have friends bringing friends, all we need is 72 of these conversations.
Yep.
That fires me up.
Right, and you could make $100,000. I mean, assuming that your economic stays, assuming that you have retention of a year or more, because we're assuming that our $3,000 per client, right, that's per year. That's what we're going to get per client per year. That's assuming you retain them for a year. But see, that's the thing about this intake. So this just brings me back to the intake. If you do this intake right, it sets up retention from the beginning.
Yes.
If you don't do this right, you are almost guaranteed to have a revolving door in your business.
Gotcha. And the intake is what creates your value.
Yes. And it's also what gives me a sense of where we're going to have to go to work, right? What our challenges are, what your hurdles are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. Like, it sets it all up. And there should be like a 3-day course just on this. Like, look, if any of you want help on this, leave comments below, and just tell me you want help with the intake so I can follow up with you, because this is how I've made my living. I've made my living on the intake.
Mm-hmm. I could so see it. And this circles back to the live webinar that we did, was with my previous personal trainer. Literally, if you want to call it an intake, Chris, he had my application, flipped it over on the back, and just started off with some initial measurements and asked me what I wanted to achieve. And then he's like, okay, let's go hit the weights.
Yep. Right? Dude, that is so common. And sometimes they'll just, like you said, like the intake is like you show up and they pull out a clipboard and they're like, okay, well, what are your goals, and what are you this and what are you that? And so there is no like you have some quiet time to think about some in-depth questions, and then I have time to think about those and then ask some follow-up questions. None of that happens. It's just, what do you want to do? I want to do this. What do you want to do? I want to do this. Great. And now it's awkward if I'm going to dig any deeper because we just met, and now let's go hit some weights. You're guaranteed to have a revolving door in your business if that's your intake strategy. But the good news is you do this right. It doesn't take a lot of genius. It just takes some systems, right? It just takes some mechanics of setting this up right. And once you set it up right, then the process does the heavy lifting. That's what I love about this. It's the process that does the heavy lifting. There's no selling involved.
Right.
But by the time you're done with the intake, they will either want to do it or not want to do it. And either one is fine, should be fine with you, because we've factored in 50% of people choosing not to do it with you. In our economic model, we've already factored or accounted for 50% of the people you have this conversation with will not sign up with you.
So they answer the 50 questions, they send it back, you type notes for more underlying questions, and then you have your 60-minute phone conversation.
Yes. While I'm doing that conversation, I have my headset on like this, and I'm talking to them on the phone, and I'm typing my thoughts. I'm typing any other questions. I'm typing anything that they say that I think I want to capture. And then when I'm all done, and then by the way, I don't like, because I'll type a lot of follow-up questions, but when I'm actually talking to them on the phone, I won't necessarily hit every follow-up question. I will go where the juicy stuff is. So if I'm like, okay, I got enough there, let me go to the next question. No, I actually don't need to ask that question. Let me go to the next question. All right, let me ask this one. What about that? Yeah, but you said this, but what about that? And so I'll just keep going down the different rabbit holes I want to go down until I feel like here's the end result. I'm looking for, one, do I have a sense of what they need in terms of a program or a solution? Two, do I have a sense of where their limits are? Where do they sabotage themselves? Because I need to deal with that moving forward. The other thing that's cool about asking these kinds of follow-up questions and going down these rabbit holes of digging with them is that it starts to condition the relationship for you to push them in a healthy way, right? To say, dude, Josh, like you said you wanted to do this, but for the last two weeks you haven't really shown up. You haven't done the work. Like, what's going on? See, I can ask that once we start working together because I conditioned that relationship that way in the intake. I set it up that way. I created that natural pattern. I created that pattern to feel natural in the intake by asking these kinds of questions already before we ever decide to work together. So when we decide to work together, it's already natural for me to have that kind of interaction with you. Right? I remember your comment last time was, you know, if you're a trainer who just flipped over the back of his paper and asked you what you want to do, let's go hit some weights, if he had tried to push you in a certain way, it would have been like, go to hell, dude. I don't need to talk to you.
Right.
Spot me on this next lift, dude. Let me lift my weights.
Yeah. Our relationship didn't start there, and you know, who gave you the right to go there?
That's
right. And so your intake is earning that right.
Good point. That's right. That's the point. That's great, Josh. Thank you. That is the point from last time, which is you are earning the right to speak this way. You're earning the right to speak into their life, having this type of an intake.
Got it. Sounds to me like we need to do a whole session on intake. This is great. Hey, and you know what? Forget about the time. This is just such good stuff, right?
Maybe I'll break these into like smaller. Each one of these can be like a mini episode of the bigger episode.
Without a doubt.
I think maybe there's some good stuff in like the. I think people. I'm feeling like this is pretty concrete. Like I'm trying to be pretty concrete about some of this. I think maybe if we did an episode for each of some of these things, it would be like, okay, let's really break it down into like, let me show you the questions of an intake and like actually diving into some of that maybe.
Because going through it like this it's really, well, you know what? It's getting the point across, you know, where you need that future coaching.
I think that's the difficulty of this type of a format sometimes is it's without people here and interacting, which is why you should leave comments down below. It makes it, you know, we're doing our best to give what needs to be out there to give the framework of this approach. And then there's all the details underneath. And by the way, let me just shamelessly plug right now the program that I put together called 9 Strong, which is basically scholarshiping 9 trainers that want to grow their business and that connect with the approach that I have. If you want me to take you under my wing, so to speak, and help you launch your business, then this program is for you, right? You'd go to 9strong.com. I wasn't going to plug that, Josh. I wasn't going to plug it, but it just seems so appropriate right now. Like the content in this is really good content, and there's some people that got to be like, dude, I totally get the whole flow from business planning to intake to, you know, starting my business. Like this whole flow makes sense. So I have to say, like, those that this is resonating with, you got to go to 9strong, the number 9strong.com, and then you'll see the place to learn more about it. So.
Yeah, sure. And it's certainly not for everybody, right? The people that want to follow the excitement and the passion and shoot from the hip, then so be it.
Nice. Right, yes. If you want to shoot from the hip, this is not for you. Right, that's right. Okay, good.
Cool. Okay, so last step is after the intake, the needs analysis. Now we're going for the commitment.
Yeah, so the last step of this is really you launching your business. And at the end of that intake, the bridge is you want to see, do you have, by the end of my intakes, I basically say, like, look, so do you have any questions about working with me? And then some people will say, if I haven't addressed the price issue, people say, well, what does it cost? I try to handle that up front so that people don't have sticker shock and then like not want to do something with me. I want them to think about that beforehand. But then I'll say like, great. So what would you like to do next? Are you ready to start? Are you ready to start this program and do and go to work on your 15 pounds before the holidays thing? And the answer is either going to be yes or no. Okay. And if it's no, great, move on. And if it's a yes, great. Then what there is to do at that moment is to get something in writing. You want to get. I don't even have a contract. One of my value propositions, or what makes me different than my competition in my story, is that all my competitors have 12-month contracts, and you are locked the hell in. You cannot get out. They will reassign you to another coach or whatever, but you are stuck if you don't like it. I was like, I'm going to flip that around. I say I have no contract. In fact, I'm month to month, and that puts the accountability on me. That if you don't like what I'm giving you, then you can just go. All I ask for is 30-day notice, but it took a lot of risk out of this for people, and it gave a lot of like, okay, so I could kind of try this out. But get this, I have people that have started with me 3.5 years ago. They're still coaching with me. So it just that kind of thing. So where I was going to go with that was, what I do have is a payment agreement. I don't have a contract, but I have a payment agreement, and it basically has the billing information, like what's the name on the card, what's the billing address, and then down below that it has what's the credit card, the expiration date, the V code, and all that stuff. That's it. And underneath it, it says like, I understand cards can be charged, blah blah blah. Get that to them when they say yes at the end of that intake call. You send that to them and get that back from them. Once you have that, you're gonna wait till you have the right amount of clients that can sustain your needs for cash flow. So if you need $3,000 a month and you're charging, let's make it $300 a month for math, you need 10 clients before you launch. So at the end of your intakes, you better have 10 payment agreements before you sever ties with your current gym or your current place of employment, and before you go out on your own. Once you have those 10, give your 2 weeks notice, give everybody that is ready to work out with you 2 weeks of like, here's 2 weeks of stuff I want you to do to ramp up for a workout in 2 weeks from now, and boom. The last step is you open your doors and off you go.
Okay, I love it. So now this circles all the way back to the original question. How do you leave without creating a stir? How do you leave the right way? How do you leave without burning bridges?
Yeah, that's really good. Great. Yeah, so in the original question, right, the guy had already left, and because he felt like he couldn't be doing this whole process before he left because it just wouldn't be right, or it would have stirred up trouble or bad relationships or burned bridges. And I think there's a couple thoughts I have. One, you can't control how other people are going to react to the things you need to do in life. If this is calling to you, this on your heart and soul to go do this, and you need to do it because that's a part of your journey. And you can't, if that offends somebody or upsets somebody and they're all pissed off, and people get that way in business. It's weird, it's petty, it's catty, and it's stupid. But they get that way. I've seen it a lot in real estate, right? The best thing you can do is do everything above board, treat them well, thank them for the opportunity, and then move on. And if they're going to be upset about it, there's just not much you can do about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not wanting to cause a stir that's a tough one to try to be responsible for. Okay, because the best you can do is be like, just don't cannibalize all their business. Don't talk bad about the gym. If people are like, well, oh, are you moving? If you haven't moved yet, people are like, well, are you going to move? You'd be like, I haven't decided that. I'm undecided. And by the way, everything we talked about, from the intake to the wine party to everything else we've done, had nothing to do with, there was no context about me leaving anything. None of that was about, hey, I'm leaving, let me have a conversation, let me do a strategy session with you. I haven't told anybody that I'm leaving. It's not, that's not important to why we're doing that. We're not doing that because I need you to know that I'm leaving.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a huge point. A huge point. and makes perfect sense. Okay. Okay. So amazing conversation. Yeah, from that one question. And this is what I want. I want people's feedback, people's comment, based on these 6 steps, about coming up with a business plan, every single item, what kind of questions do you have? Comment below. And if you have any other questions around personal training or the fitness industry, post those questions below, because this is perfect insight and a fresh new look from Chris and what he brings to the table. And we'd love to be able to dissect and unfold and peel back all the layers of your questions, because I promise you this, Matt, it probably didn't even cross Matt's mind about the detail and the depth that you went into on his questions. So comment below. You like it, you love it, you hate it. Give us the good, the bad, the ugly, and let's work through this. Parting thoughts. What kind of final thoughts do you have, Chris?
Look, I think anybody that is brave enough to listen to that stirring in their gut. There's a stirring that happens when you see something for yourself. Like, I want to have my own business, or I want to have this kind of income, or I want to have this kind of lifestyle. There's some courage that it takes to entertain that and honor that stirring. And when you have, I think a lot of people shy away from it and they bury it because they don't know they don't know how to move forward, or they have some self-talk that may not be the best. Like, I'm not sure how I can do that, or I don't know if I can do that, whatever. And this process is the best way I have found to shore up your launch. If you want to launch the right way, this is probably the best way, I think, to do it, because you're eliminating risk. And that's most people's challenge and most people's fear when starting a business for themselves is the risk. So if you just do these things up front, you should take the risk out of it. That's my final thought.
Excellent. Love it, man. I look forward to next time. Everybody post your questions, comments below, and let's keep the dialogue going. We'll see you in the comment section. Rock and roll.
Thanks, Josh. Rock and roll. Right, shake and bake, Al. Shake and bake. All right. See you, man.